Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rosignol, and I'm really excited for today's guest. It's my mentor, the coach I grew up with and learned so much from. Today's guest is Reggie Smith. Reggie Smith has had a huge impact on me and how I've got to where I am. Reggie played 17 years in the big leagues with the Boston Red Sox, St. Louis Cardinals, Los Angeles Dodgers, and San Francisco Giants. After that, he went on to play 2 years in Japan before retiring. He finished his career with over 2,000 hits, over 300 home runs, was a 7-time All-Star, a World Series champion. After his playing career, he went on to become a big league hitting coach, a big league field coordinator, and also went on to the front office. After that, he became a big league hitting coach for the Team USA, where he won a gold medal. What's always stood out to me about Reggie is no matter if he's working with Hall of Famers or Little Leaguers, he always treats them the same. He's, I think, way advanced or been way ahead of his where all these biomechanics and all this stuff, he's been way ahead of our time and the things that he's been studying for years before this stuff even became popular. I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Reggie, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's always good to see you, and hopefully I have some fun with this.
I'm really excited. I think I was very lucky to train under you, be with you, spend as much time as I did. All the guys and that was also there that are still making an impact in this game all over all different levels, and we're going to get into that a little bit. I always tell the story. I always wanted the 7 a.m. slot every Saturday with you because then I could sit there and watch you train and learn from you the rest of the day and ask you questions. And you always let me ask as many questions as I had so I can learn. And yeah, I was lucky enough to have that, and I'm looking forward to this.
Well, Matt, you were all of the kids there. You made the commitment, and to get there and want to get started at that early in the morning so that you could be around to learn as much as you can. It was exciting for me too, because as a teacher, as an instructor, these are the kind of students that you want to have, the ones that are eager to learn. And as a teacher, you want to impart as much information as possible. And I'm so thankful too for you for that, because at least you kept a promise that you took this information and imparted it, because probably as any instructor, the most precious gift that you can give is time and information. And part of that gift that's being shared, the only way to keep it is that you have to share it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think another, selfishly, the another thing was to have that early slot. Then if there was ever any extra time in between sessions, I don't know how many times I would ask, "Hey Reggie, can I get a couple more swings until the next guy gets here?" And luckily, you always let me. So,
If ever you're eager to learn, that's the one thing. That's the one indicator of someone who wants to get better. To give that time. Yeah, if it's in that time that you can take a few extra swings, that can make the difference
absolutely,
in someone.
absolutely. Kind of get into a little bit. You had a lot. I remember a lot of stories, a lot of great coaches. Two coaches that really stand out. One, Ted Williams was your hitting coach in Boston. Also, Sadaharu when you were in Japan. Probably for those who don't know who Sadaharu was or is, he had over 800 home runs in Japan and was Reggie's manager when he was there. But to get started, to go back, you got to learn from the great Ted Williams. I believe the last hitter to hit over 400 in the MLB. But what was that like, learning from him and spending as much time as you did with him?
Well, I was really fortunate and really blessed at a real early time in my career, because, see, Matt, I had a major league contract when I was 18. So being in spring training, with the Red Sox, and Williams had only been retired at that time 4 years, uh, and just his reputation there was something special. And the fact that he took an interest in me, and it came about because, quick story, um, I as a rookie, as a young player, oftentimes when they ran out of batting practice pitchers, or back in my day, that time pitchers, team pitchers through batting practice, and then maybe a coach would finish up. But on this, at times as a rookie, you didn't get
Sure.
live BP. So did this one particular day, they time to say, hey, if you want to BP, because the coaches didn't have time because they had tea times that they wanted to make. So they said, if you want to hit the ball, you just go throw them up and hit them. Well, I used to throw baseballs up and hit it, or either hit rocks with a broomstick as a kid. So I took 2 bags of baseballs out on the field, and I hit one bag right-handed, and I hit the next bag left-handed. It was out there, and Ted Williams, who didn't like going through the regular parking lot and the media and out there, he would cut through the baseball field and go out the gates around quick, because he wouldn't park his car in the player lots. So he came out in the field and he saw what he did. And he said, "What are you doing, Bush?" And I said, "Well, they didn't have any batting practice pitchers, so they told me." I said, "And that's just something I used to do as a kid. I'd throw balls up and hit them." He said, "Go pick up the balls and meet me at the batting cage." And I said, "Okay, it's a great one." And that's when he started working with me, because he saw that I was willing and wanted to learn to get better. And if I was willing to do that, he was going to be willing to work with. But he was still very tough, because the one thing that he made me do was pay attention to the things that he was saying, and that helped me kind of form my teaching approach. That he would ask questions, and I said, by paying attention, he would have already answered the question in what he was saying. So he wanted to see if I was paying attention to it, and you know, he challenged me with things, and that's how I learned not only about understanding my own personal mechanics, because he said, "I'm not going to teach you a swing. Anything he says, you got to dig it out of the dirt yourself, and your blisters are going to have to get blisters." And my hand, sure enough, my hands would bleed. Yeah, I rubbed some dirt on it, Bush, and you just keep going. So I was learning, and then he said, he would ask the question. He says, "Well, what are you going to do if you go into a slump?" And I stammer, and he said, "Oh," he said, "you're going to close your stance, decrease the angle of the bat, and go the other way." And I had to answer it like that. And sometimes I'd be walking. He asked, "What are you going to do if you go into a slump, boy?" He said, "You still don't know." So little things like that. Other times I'd take a pitch. He said, "Where was that pitch?" Well, the pitch was about 3 inches outside. "Don't you know?" You know, the pitch was 3 inches outside. He said, "No, it was only 2 inches outside." So I'm going to, in my mind, I'm saying, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
The pitch was outside. And then he explained. He said that for every inch that you add around the plate to outside of the strike zone, you effectively add one third more area to the strike zone. So, all of a sudden that did make a difference, because baseball is what, if you measure it across, it's 3 inches
Sure.
across. So you start to chase pitches. He said out of the strike zone, it becomes just that much more difficult to hit. So the things like that I had to pay attention to, that he was programming way back then, that for me, challenge me to learn about myself. And if you look at the word play, PLAY. It stands for physically learn about yourself. So that's so I took that method there to provide good information and let the individual uh, be the best that he could be without trying to say, well, you have to do it this way or that way, to try to take a um, square peg and trying to put it in a round hole.
So yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, he, you had him early on, but was there anything or any cues or any reminders that you continue to use once you weren't with him that you carried on through your playing career that you always kind of went back to?
Well, understanding the swing, and
Yeah,
that one is that uh, the object is to meet the ball on the opposite plane. You know, he used to talk,
sure.
well, he's teaching everyone to swing up. Well, it's not so much an uppercut swing, but it is more of an on plane swing. So if the ball is coming
Down.
down on a downward angle because the catcher squats and the pitcher stands on a mound,
Sure.
then the object is to match that plane. And so I was always one in terms of, I loved this science and I had that curiosity about that. So it made all the sense in the world to me of understanding, equal and opposite and Newton's basic
Sure.
laws of motion. And to match the plane of the ball. And if the ball's coming down, your swing has to be moving in a slightly upward trajectory.
Absolutely.
And later on, through the standing biomechanics and everything, that that was already set in your posture. So once you set your posture and you maintained it, it just so happens most pitches that come in from the pitcher's mound, your swing is going to match it. So that's going to give you the best chance to make good solid contact. And that's something that, again, Williams talked about way back in the 40s.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember when you were introducing that stuff to us, or not introducing, but showing me like, well, this is the plan here, like, and how simple you always made it. And I think that was always or is one of your biggest strengths is you always made it so simple. And I think if and you always said if you can't explain it simple or for us to understand, then it didn't matter how good
Well,
or it wasn't that good.
that's what Einstein said. If you can't explain it simply, you don't
So
understand it.
yeah,
So it became a matter of learning to teach first. How does someone process information? I studied the student, find out how he processes information, and hitting and swinging. If you really truly understand it, it is really simple.
simple.
It's something that you already know how to do, uh, but it has to be it has to suit you. It has to fit you, because that was one of the things that Williams talked about. He was saying that unfortunately, a lot of coaches and instructors find what someone else does naturally as being in conflict with what they think and
Sure.
how they feel this swing should look. So when you understand that and say, well, okay, this is how this person does it, then it's my responsibility as an instructor to help you to improve and have a better understanding of what you're doing and how you do it, so that you can become the best that you can be.
Absolutely.
If there's some little things that it can see that is causing problems, then it's necessary for me to call those things out to you to help you improve. Say, for instance, if you have a lot of head movement, if you have a lot of head movement, I know that it's going to affect how you're seeing
The
the
ball.
ball.
Yeah.
So, what can we do to get you to eliminate that excessive head movement,
Yeah.
and by being as still as possible? And that's it became a matter of how to do that. Well, instead of letting your upper body go with your stride, well, just take your stride, trying to keep your body as centered as possible. So
Absolutely.
that knocked out all of this weight shift
Yeah.
stuff,
No, I
because that
remember
became part of the problem.
100%. I remember, yeah. I remember us talking about like eliminating that back and forth and just trying to
Yes.
find that 50-50 good balance, good posture. And uh, I do have a couple questions on that as we go, but before we skip to that, I want to ask you a question about your time in Japan and with Sadaharu. Uh, you trained under him, and he was your manager there. I remember us talking a lot about how you spent a lot of time with the samurai swords. Can you explain what was the goal? One, what it was like training with those, and two, what was the goal and purpose of using the samurai swords? And unfortunately, probably can't use those in today's training here at the facility, but still,
Get the wooden swords.
get wooden swords. Yeah, that's a good idea.
No, and it was that was another treat because he was a great hitter, and I had seen and played against him when the Tokyo Giants would come over to the United States there in part of their spring training, and I had seen when he was playing, and he could hit, and he could hit with power, and he wasn't that big a guy, but he everything and how centered he was and how quick he could be with that bat. His power was real, and he hit against some of the top pitchers of that time. You know, the Gibsons and Drysdale. He faced, and he still hit well against him. But in working with him and his understanding of the swing, the position and the quietness and the centering of the body. You know, it's funny how like they said, all the great hitters seem to have uncovered that in what they were able to do in any uh, similarities that they shared about the swing. But part of it was that he had trained with the sword because he had trained under kind of a samurai code there, and his teacher himself he trained him using the sword for its accuracy and the discipline and the focus that it took. So what he would do with the swords, we would take these strips of paper, this newspaper, and he would thread one end of it and hang it in the ceiling, and he'd turn it, and as it started to unwind, and the paper was rotating, he would have to make a cut on the side, on the edge of the paper, in a way that as it was turning, and it be precise with that cut. And I had trained in martial arts, so he knew that. And what he did, he had two swords. One was 600 years old, and another one was like almost 300 years old, and which he called his young sword. And the the precision that he could cut a straight line down at an angle right through the end of at the bottom of the paper, and I could do it, but at the last half inch there would be a slight curve, so it would be here and would be a slight curve there, and in trying to get it straight, he told me, he said, don't worry about that. He said, because what you're seeing is your baseball swing and what happens in the swing. And that's when I learned that that little slight curve there is what actually puts the backspin on the baseball. That's what
Sure.
was explained to him. He said, because when you see the ball compress against the bat, okay, if you're squaring it up and compress against the bat, that little quarter return backwards as the hands stay in a palm down, palm up position is what puts the spin or the type of spin on the baseball, and understanding what that was. And so that's what I would practice. I didn't take that, and you know, I was doing it anyway without realizing that that's what was happening. It just, again, that curiosity and
Sure.
that science side of me looked at that. Okay, well, this is the position that their hands are in the contact. This is what it could get the type of spin that you want in the ball. So therefore, if this puts backspin on it, then what causes the top spin? And that that was created not by the top hand, but by the bottom hand, because that's the hand that the bat's the extension of. So these are things that I learned with Owen also, and through that, it set up me being able to go into a biomechanics lab there where they took high speed film and it could actually see it occurring. And I credit with giving me the opportunity to learn these things and working with the sword, because that's why when I had you guys and using and understanding, look, with the wooden sword, the position that your hands had to be in to hold the sword, first of all, and second, if you were going to cut with it, you're going to cut across something, the position that your hand would be palm down, palm up.
Just out of curiosity, is just hearing that, was that where the design of like the halfback came from?
The
to
flat back,
match?
yes. Yes, because instead of hitting it on the flat side,
Yeah.
you hit on the rounded side, and by reducing the size of that to about an inch, it increased the difficulty of being able. And you could see when you start to hit on you can tell the difference when you're hitting on the round side of the bat and the flat side, and the evidence shows up in the ball marks itself. So that was the purpose of me making the half bat.
Got it.
A flat bat, I call it. Or what they call backspin.
Yeah. No, it makes more sense when you said about the preciseness and that. Then I kind of I put it together a little bit. But how? I mean, obviously, you said you're always into the learning, the science side. Did you always know you wanted to go into coaching after, or how did that come about?
Well, hold on 1 second. Yeah. As a senior in high school, we had a senior problems class, and the instructor said that by the time you were 16, you should know what your purpose in life was. And I tested out as being either a minister, a doctor, or a teacher. And it just something that just happened to occur naturally with me, because playing, whether it's football or everything, I would take time to show someone how to do something. And I found that it became relatively easy for me. And when I retired from baseball, I actually started my own business. I had a computer supply business and an ethnic hair care, and got the call from the Dodgers after when I was at home there to if I had any desire to coach, and I said no, but I had a couple of kids. I know you might remember Matt LaCour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I lived down the street from him, and his dad asked if I would work with he and his brother. So I set up my car cover in my garage, and it got a T and hit him, and I used to work with him in my garage, and saw that, hey, I can teach this. So eventually, when the Dodgers asked me if I'd like to come back, and I said, okay, well, I'd do it so they offered it to me on a part-time basis if that had any interest. So I said, yeah, I did. And then I got into it and realized, hey, you know what? This is where I belong. This is what I do best. And we were seeing immediate results in the Dodger organization. And they went from an organization that was hitting 230 to we jumped to 280 in my first few months there. So then that's when they made me the hitting coordinator. And then from there on to I kept those jobs, so I was like assistant farm director as a field coordinator for the Dodgers.
And during that time, or especially as like the field coordinator and the um, hitting coordinator, but especially field coordinator, what are some of the things you focused on the development side with those, especially the younger guys, to help them get ready to be big leaguers?
Well, one of the things from the development standpoint, when they told me, "Hey, this is your program," you write out all the protocols and everything. I had to do what coordinators do, and that's to take every one that had a responsibility for a particular aspect of the game, whether it's fielding, infield coordinator, outfield, or catching, pitching, and hitting. We had to all get on the same page, with what we were teaching. So, and what that entailed was, to say, for instance, say the hitting side of it, there was the understanding that there was no one way to hit, that it was our responsibility to be able to correctly identify the attributes and the skill sets of each one of the players and how they did things, and be able to impart information to them that was going to help them to be one as natural as possible, and maximize their skill in levels too, so that they could move to the next level, and identifying that. And that's what we were able to do through communication. And it was, as a coordinator, if say a particular one of our coaches worked well with a kid, I made sure that kid had access to that instructor, to help him, because that's what it was about, getting the players to the next level. And so we had to check all egos, even if someone was working with a kid and it wasn't clicking with him. We had to, hey, he works better with so and so, put him with that person. And that's what started to happen, and being able to do that. So, in looking at the kids, it became a matter of assessing accurately where they were at any given level. If he's a rookie player, he's a low A or high A player, double A, ready for double A, triple A, and from triple A, and is he ready to go to the major leagues? These are things that we had to do, but at the same time, uh, had to overcome, one, the kids' feeling of where they were drafted, how much money they had received as a signing bonus and everything, and ultimately got the blessing from the owner, Peter O'Malley, to say, do not let where how much money a kid signed for or where he was drafted affect the amount of time that needed to be spent with him to get him. He says, because the minor leagues is for getting players to the major leagues. They're the minor leagues. So in trying to give that information, and say that to the kids and mean it to where they trust it. Well, that's what we did. We didn't hold kids back. So that meant that I had to take the personal responsibility of saying to the kid, "Hey, you do what I ask you to do. You don't worry about the numbers. You just do what I ask you to do, and you keep making the improvement. You will advance. If we think you're ready for the double A ball or the triple A ball for the next level, you will get an opportunity to do that, and it doesn't matter how much you sign for." And that's what we did. That's how we were able to promote it, get an Eric Karros, to get a Mike Piazza,
Well, that was my next question, but
because I kept my word. You do what I ask you to do. You do these things to make the improvement. It's incumbent upon us at this time to provide two things, basically, opportunity and time.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I know you have been, and rightly so, have been uh, very associated with Mike Piazza and his success to get him to where he got. And I mean, he was a 62nd round draft pick, and there's not even, that's 40 less than there are now. But I mean, that doesn't go without, giving them a fair shot. Now sometimes you hear about, they bring a guy in, but they didn't get X amount of money, and so there's kind of just like just a number on the roster instead of actually giving guys these shots. And the diamond in the rough, there you could have a diamond in the rough if you give them the opportunity to.
Well, that's the thing, and you're being able to recognize
Yeah.
that diamond in the rough. You have players, you look at players from out west, you look at players from the south and southeast versus players from the north, northeast, and midwest. Uh, the development in those players occur at different times.
Yeah.
You see that player on the West Coast and coming through the South and the Southeast, they get to play more often, more regularly. And then you're trying to assess a kid from the upper Midwest who only plays maybe at best between his high school team and in the summer 30 games
Right.
in a season. And you have that kid in the other regions, the southern and western regions, that are playing 50 and 60 games or more.
Sure.
So you can see what happens in terms of the development, where you can see that kid out west and go, wow, he popped your eyes. But this kid from the Northwest, even though he has less experience, he has some talent. He needs more time
Sure.
to gain experience, and you have to be able to balance that and see and assess where you think he is going to be, say not a year from now, but where is he going to be 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years down the road, and ultimately that's what it came down to when you're drafting players, is to not where so much where they are now. Where do you think you're going to see them in 2, 3, 4, even maybe as far out as 6 years down the road?
Sure.
And how they're going to fit into. So, and in time you learn to make those kind of evaluations and assessment. And other organizations, it's difficult for them to do because they have to get a quicker return on their investment from the amount of money that they were paying in this draft for. Like I said, we were fortunate. The Dodgers, Peter O'Malley, said, "Don't let that be the determining factor of how much time we spend with the kids." And as a result of that, we got more kids out of our middle and lower rounds that made it to the major leagues and stayed.
Sure.
The kids that were drafted much higher, that even though you tried to fast track and move them along, they just didn't make it.
Absolutely.
So and it came down to, I think, those middle round players, because of that, for some reason or other, worked harder and they were hungrier.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, not to talk too much about us, but we have a guy who is in the big leagues actually pitching for the Brewers, pitched last night in the playoff game. He went through 5 independent leagues before he got a chance in a team, was released 4 times, had to go overseas to finally got signed by the A's, and then now he's with the Brewers. And it wasn't until he was 26 that he was in an affiliate. And so just, it is different for everyone. Everyone's time, as long as they keep working and they're willing to do it and they get given the appropriate time, it could
Well,
happen.
that's what it takes. And one of my favorite sayings to kids is, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary.
Yep. So to go to into your teaching philosophy, and something that I've carried over to here, and I think is so important, and I know it's something I dealt with when I was playing and working with you, is everyone wants to use the cookie cutter approach. Give everyone the same cues, give them the same thing, and try to teach everyone the same. You've always preached individualization. No two players are the same. You've never, sure, there might be certain things that are each hitter or player needs to get to, but overall, you've always your approach has always been individualization. How did that come about, and how can you explain the importance of it?
Yes, you see, if you look, we everyone generally falls into three different body types, and there's kind of hybrids
Sure.
in between there. Uh, so of the two other hybrids, there are five different body types, and if you think about that, they're how you do something. So that's why there's no one technique that's going to work exactly the same for everyone. It's because of the different body types that we have. One, and how the body naturally wants to move. Two, how we process information. The time the timing that's necessary to be able to execute a certain type of movement. So it and how, again, how that information is running, eyesight, all of these things have to be taken into consideration as to the movement itself, and out of that establish their how they balance, how well they see and again and react to what they're doing. So are there certain basic fundamentals that look the same that you did? Yeah, but again, it comes down to give you that information to say, I want you to do this, and basically, it should be if you can. So in taking that approach, do it how you do it.
Absolutely.
If I did, I want you to maintain your posture and your throughout the full swing. How you do it is how you do it. You own that.
Absolutely.
I can't say, well, that's not how Aaron Judge does it or how Altuve does it. Try to look like them. No,
You're not there.
you look at two different body
Yeah.
types. So how is the same mechanic going to work exactly the same for them? No.
Absolutely.
So that's how that came about. And you have to be you to be the best you can be.
Absolutely. To go into a little bit and kind of combine a couple questions into one here. You have been obviously biomechanics and movement and something that's very big in today's game, they're studying that a lot more. But you were way ahead, and you've been studying biomechanics uh, for a long time. You've been in the lab. What uh, what did that teach you? How did that help you with your philosophies and where you're coaching?
Well, again, um, I was fortunate enough, and the Dodgers allowed me a lot of freedom and latitude to uh, take what I considered my theories and my approaches to add the science to prove it or disprove it. And they had one of the best facilities here in Los Angeles, the biomechanics lab at Sentinel Hospital with the Curlin and Joe group there. And I got to go into the biomechanics lab because I wanted to learn uh, the musculoskeletal system and how it worked, how we did the things that we did based on the information that I had. So, and in doing that and going into the biomechanics lab, I had to check my ego at the door and let the science go where it was going to go. So we wound up. I had young players in the Dodger organization between the ages of 18 and 23 that as my lab uh, subjects there, to where we did a biomechanical study to where they actually uh, put wires, use needles to put wires into different muscles within the body to see the firing sequence of that. And because as a switch hitter, and at the time I was about 44, 45 years old, uh, they asked me, having been a major league player, if I would do it. So, and as it turned out, even at that age, I could still swing the bat faster than the young players that we used in the test. And as a switch hitter, I had wires coming out all different parts of my body at the time, that they had to stick in with the needles. But in doing so, in measuring the difference in the sequence, and they found that the sequencing pretty much was the same. The difference was in my experience, because I had major league experience, and so in getting that understanding. But more importantly, it was for me. I know the sequence of the firing of the muscle sequence, and that's what was very, very important to understanding that the swing is created from the bottom up.
Absolutely.
From the using of the big muscles and the sequencing of that. And as long as it was correct and proper, it provided a prophylactic effect for prevention of injury. Because I looked at it to see the swing sequence and how to improve. The medical side of it was looking at so that they understood the sequence and how the muscles to prevent injuries and what muscles to train and how to train them to be able to maximize performance.
Absolutely. In terms of maximizing performance, I know for us when we were training with you, it was very little drill work. There was some drills that we did, but it wasn't a ton of drills. Today, you see guys doing 20 different drills and spending more time doing drills than actually working on the actual thing at hand. And with
tell you
that,
a quick story about that. Red Auerbach, who's the great basketball coach for the Boston Celtics, had a saying. You were asking because that was during that stretch there where the Celtics won like 9 or 10 championships in a row, and they asked him, well, what drills do you guys do? Red Auerbach looked at him and he says, drills. He said, drills are like hitting yourself over the head with a hammer over and over. It feels better when you stop doing it. So, and then I spoke with John Wood, and he said that there were certain things that you do that were the basics, but once you got those down, then it was just a matter of you executing and being in situations. So, a lot of drills, unless they are to cure or help you with a specific problem, there's no need to do drills that don't apply to you as a hitter. If you don't have that problem, there's no need for you to do that drill.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's like, okay, maybe this one drill, if there is something, it's this one drill, and then let's try to go implement it into the actual thing versus let's just do drills to just do drills. And I think that's
that's useless. Like I said, you're just, to me, wasting valuable time instead of working on the things that you need to work on that are going to help you as an individual get better. So if you have a particular weakness, yes, you can work on it, but you don't want to let the strength wane or get lost either. To where you find that balance and to improve, but work more on your strength.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into my next question is, we see all these, cues that are given to athletes. And I think one thing that is never actually talked about is that could help fix a lot of the problems, and it's something you always talked about is posture. Is we give all these cues, get to this position, but without actually fixing the posture that will put them into position. Can you talk a little bit about posture, the importance of posture, and how that could be, as we like, something like a word we like to use, like the lowest hanging fruit, is you fix the posture, and it could clean up 5 or 6 different things instead of.
That's correct. Yes.
And
You
so,
see, when you talk about posture, it's related to your natural athletic posture.
absolutely,
So whatever that is, anything that you're going to do for power, quickness, and speed, that becomes what your natural posture should be. That's going to allow you to maximize your ability, and it starts with stance width. That where you have your optimal stance width that will allow you to move freely without tension or anything obstruction. Your posture is how it's set for you athletically. Like I say again, anything that you're going to do uh, athletic is similar to, say, if you were going to guard, if you were a basketball player, if you were going to guard someone, the posture that you get into where those angles that get set, the key then, that becomes your batting stance.
yeah,
And as long as you can do that and move about unencumbered in a way where, because be able to swing the bat, where you do all of the things that you need to do to be able to swing the bat and get it into the path of that ball, then that's going to give you the best chance of being successful. Whereas if something doesn't fit, your posture doesn't fit, and you have to try to move to get into it, well, you got to think about it, especially from hitting a baseball, where we're talking about milliseconds that you have to be able to do that. Anything that where there's a compensation that has to be made, uh, the it has the effect of creating uh, time problems for you, as well as space problems, because you got everything happens in the brain. The brain is what allows you to see.
absolutely. As you
It's a
always
brain function. So it has to send information back to the eyes. It has to send information to the inner ear for balance, and it has to send information to your central nervous system as to how to move and and create the appropriate movement to achieve whatever action is that you want, and that's swinging the bat and hitting the baseball. So the more extraneous things that it has to do, movements that you have to make to overcome uh, things that then you're compensating. And again, since you were talking about milliseconds or faster than you can blink your eye to be able to recognize a pitch, decide whether you're going to swing or not, and then react. Uh, you're talking about faster than you can blink your eye.
absolutely. And just to talk or touch on the brain a little bit, I know I remember people would always say, well, how can I learn that so I have the muscle memory? And you'd always say, there is no muscle memory. The brain's giving an input of what the muscle should be doing or the
Should
body
be
should be
doing at
doing.
that time. That's
Yeah,
correct. So don't think about it as muscle memory.
yeah,
What you are doing, even hitting a baseball, is actually done from memory.
yeah,
Yeah, and that memory coming from experience, and it's through that experience that you gain knowledge,
absolutely.
and from knowledge, and ultimately hopefully you gain the wisdom from it, so that that you are able to do these things, because it's all happening so quickly you can't think about it. And
Absolutely.
that's when I was my martial arts trainer, he used to say, he says, if you're thinking, you're stinking. So you don't have time to think. You have to react, and it comes from you rehearsing, because
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
practice is
Practice,
for,
right?
where you do the same things over and over again when everyone else wants to quit.
Absolutely. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I have couple last questions. Technology is a huge part of the game today. I don't think it's going away. Um, with that, and I think technology, if used the right way, be a could help. Like I always tell our coaches here, or even our players, especially when they get caught up in like what does it say? What does it say? Like technology gives us the results, but it doesn't tell us why that result happened. And so we still need to understand why that happened and how to help better the result of what the feedback is giving us. What is um, what is a way, I guess, that you think we can help players use technology better? And yeah,
Well, you said it. Unfortunately, the reliance on technology has almost gotten to the point of it being abused, and it's allowed, as far as I'm concerned, mediocrity to creep into uh, sports, especially baseball, from the standpoint that it's allowing players to uh, be mediocre and stop being responsible for their own learning. Now, is there a use for technology? Absolutely. But technology does not play. Humans play. And you need to understand what it is to be able to take that technology and use it to get better, actually improve. And that comes about through some knowledge that was gained hundreds of years ago as to how we move and the things that we need to do. And again, unfortunately, the reliance upon it to where they're seeking numbers uh, without a true understanding of how we should effectively achieve those numbers. And it's really quite simple,
sure.
and that is be natural. Do it how you do it. And you work through that, being how you're not trying to copy how somebody else does.
Absolutely. One other major thing, and I could ask more questions on that or movement side. I think that's one of the greatest things that I've learned is how much movement affects everything. We talked about that with posture, and that was something you always preached to us. Myself now, I have a kid who's playing in the travel ball. I started uh, a travel ball team so that I really wanted to make sure it was about development, giving chance to learn the game the right way, not get so caught up in um, the wins and losses right now and at the expense of the kids' development or pitching, getting hurt, things like that. How do you think we can help travel ball today and help it make it a positive instead of a negative?
That spend more time letting the kids determine the outcomes of games.
Yeah,
You know, let them practice. It's playtime. That's what we don't work baseball. We play baseball. Yeah, to play at the higher levels, you have to be a man, but you still have to have a lot of little boy in you, and
sure.
you understand that baseball is a little boy's game. So you learn go and play. So I explained what play was, physically learn about yourself. And if you add time onto the end of that, it is through individual means of expression. So kids need to go out and play more, and they can learn more in an environment where they're doing the things themselves rather than being in such where it's so organized that the only time that they do any activities, either they're playing a game or they're in a practice session with coaches around.
Sure.
So I encourage kids and coaches to just sometimes just have a practice where let the kids
Control it.
go out and do and take the responsibility themselves of picking their own teams and going to and position. So it's basically putting the balls and bats out there. And if you want to be involved in it, just be the umpire. let them do everything else so that they can still have fun playing the game. And at the same time, you can use it as a teaching moment. And if they make a mistake in a play, and say, hey, if you had to do what would you do in this situation? You can use it as a teaching moment. Things like that, so that the kids can learn overall responsibility and take pride in what they're doing. And what that stands for, pride, personal responsibility in daily endeavors.
Yeah.
So yeah, so little things like that. So that's the way I coach, and that's the way the travel teams that I started here, and I think why they've had the success that they have, because my coaches understand that, and they go out there and let the kids determine the outcome of the game based on the information that we've provided and the opportunity that we've given them in practice to learn these things.
Yeah.
So just because they're 7, 8, and 9, 10, and even 12 years old, I told them we're not going to teach them Little League Baseball. We're going to teach them how they do the things in the major leagues, because they're going to try to do it anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember how many hours we spent on those backfield after, especially in the summers after camps. When camp would finish at 3, we would go and just practice on the backfields from 3 till about 8 when it got dark, and then get back
go
to
in the cages and compete, and then play cage games where you actually, that's what that was about. 100%. And why.
The other thing I think that was always important, and that you always hit on, like when guys made a mistake when we did our drill work, it was never like go run. It was like, well, we're just gonna keep doing it until you know. And I think that's one huge thing that a lot of coaches could learn is like, running them is not going to make them learn to do something.
All they're going to do is make them learn to hate running.
Exactly. Or the game.
If you make a mistake, fix the problem, and then you don't have that problem. So it became a matter. I tell kids in camp, when I have camp, I said, if we're hitting ground balls and doing a ground ball drill and you miss the ball, don't just run to the end of the line. Say, can I have another one?
Yeah.
And that's our coaches. I said that impression. That's what I look for. Or either, because I tell take another one. And if you miss it again, take another one. The object is for them to leave there with something positive.
Absolutely.
And that way, practices are fun for them, and they actually learn, because I like to look at what I'm teaching you now. It might show up in the next game, but somewhere down the road, it's going to work, because I'm going to keep giving you that opportunity to fail, because the game lends itself to that. But to fail now to where you can ultimately have some success, and then you own it. You don't have to worry about that. That you understand that. All right, I didn't intend to do that. Hit me another one.
Yep, absolutely. Do you have time for 2 more questions?
Sure.
All right. First one. Well, I don't know if this question is more just, I mean, obviously you've developed a lot of great players, but also you have a lot of guys that you develop into some great coaches. And I think I just want to recognize that. You have a guy who's with the Dodgers in the Major League Dodgers organization, the Pirates, and just a ton of coaches all over the world. And how has that made you feel for them to continue to pass on the things that you've taught to us?
Well, remember I talked about expanding the circle.
Yep.
How we're all interlinked, and we're only going to be as strong as the connections that we make. And part of that, we had to promise that the information that was shared with you, you would share it with someone else, so that expands the circle, expanding group. And the guys that have gone on, I'd like to think that not only I help develop baseball players, I develop good people, good young men, that responsible men that realize that their place in society with the gifts that were shared with them, and their responsibility that they had to contribute in a positive way the community and society as a whole. And I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of the people that are still in baseball, and the things that they're doing, that they've kept the faith and they've kept their word.
That's great. The last question, because I think this is something that, especially for the kids and the parent, especially the kids listening, is you always told us to ask why, in terms of like, so we understood what we were being taught. And I think a lot of coaches would either get offended or feel like you're questioning them. What would you say the best way to ask that why, so it doesn't come off the wrong way?
Well, why is the most important question, because if you understand why something, you'll teach yourself how. And as a coach, that's one of the things that I told you guys, it's okay to challenge me. You know, I need to get you to the point that you understand. That means that you're standing and that you're supporting it. You get to that point, and you can do that if you can ask why something, uh, and to, instead of just saying, "Well, coach, why do I do it that way?" You just say, "Coach, can you explain that a little better, or can you explain what's taking place at that time?" You see, because Matt, there's a difference in coaching and teaching.
100%.
Coaches regurgitate. Coaches simply regurgitate what somebody else has told them. Teachers learn.
Absolutely.
You're constantly learning. So you shouldn't be offended if someone asks you why, because you really want to know, how do I do this?
Yep. No, absolutely.
Not how do you do it, how do I do this? And if you get that, and you make that known from the very beginning, to say, I expect you to challenge me, then you've empowered them to be responsible for their own learning at that point. So that, as a coach, that's what you empower your students to challenge you, for you to be able to explain it simply enough that they understand it and can apply it.
Absolutely. No, that makes absolutely. And I think, yeah, the more that the player understands the why, the better they're going to be able to apply it into performance. And
They'll teach themselves
exactly,
how
100%.
how they do it. That's
And you
correct.
always said you should be your best coach because you know your body best. So
That's my job. You
um,
know, for you to be the best teacher you ever had, because once you step in that batter's box, or you step out on that field, I can't help you.
yep, absolutely. No one else is there but you.
Yeah.
All right, Reg. 2 rapid fire 1-word answers. One cue you wish would disappear.
Hmm. That'd be too rapid. For one cue, I wish it would disappear. Uh, uh, it's not. I can't say it in one word.
Okay.
Reliance on technology
I like it.
alone.
Perfect. Favorite hitter to watch in today's game?
Um, Cal Raleigh,
I like it.
switch hitter
Yep.
with power. I wish he struck out less, but I ain't. Just having been a switch hitter, and knowing the difficulty of that, and seeing what he accomplished. Yeah, there are some other hitters that I like, but I just like the uniqueness
Sure.
of what he's been able to achieve this year.
And being from the catching position, it makes it even that much more difficult.
Even tougher, yes.
Last thing, one thing a coach should study, learn that's going to help them be a better coach.
Learn how that student learns, and if there's anything that I can say. It's an old expression that Branch Rickey used to say with coaches, that they would ask, the question, and he said, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. How many times do I have to say it to that kid? Branch Rickey would say, one more time.
Yeah.
And that simply means, coaches, be patient,
Absolutely.
be fair, and be honest.
That makes sense. That's awesome. Reggie, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this. And yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Don't be afraid to ask me. Come on again
I
anytime.
definitely will, mate. Yeah, I would. I was already thinking that, but yeah, I definitely would love to have you on again. Maybe we get a little more specific on some specific hitting things and
Sure.
stuff like that. But thank you, and really thank you for the time and all the knowledge. For us, you can find us at rossiestraining.com. I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks.